Looks like another autumn has reached the shores of Lake Michigan. The trees are going bare and the cold as well. It's just downright cold. And me? Well, I'm passing this fine autumn day waiting for my friend Nicole in downtown Chicago. We're going to the Harold Washington Library and take a look around. There's Nicole now, coming off the beleaguered L. Let's go inside, shall we? Now, how about that? Sure seem to be a lot of hallways. Oh, there we go. There's a sign to the main lobby. Now we're getting somewhere. Or maybe we're not. Maybe there's a sign that'll help us. Or maybe not. Hey, there's some escalators. Let's try those. And another. And some more hallways.
Where are the adults?
Good question. How do we get to the library? How do we even get in? Another escalator? Or maybe we just get stopped from filming altogether.
So now what? Nicole and I really wanted to make this mini documentary exploring the Harold Washington Library and thinking a little bit about how it fit into this notion of library as place. But we were stopped. We weren't allowed. They have a strict policy against filming. So the first thing Nicole and I had to do was give up this idea of the culture of the perfect. The second thing we decided to do was have a talk show.
Thanks, Chris! I'm so glad to be here!
Hi, and welcome to Library 2.0. My name is Chris Breitenbach, and I'm here with my guest, Nicole Birchfield, who's going to be discussing a little bit of her experience at the Harold Washington Library. And so stay with us. But they said that they had a very strict policy of no filming.
Yes, a policy.
A policy
No
which
filming,
we didn't
any
ask to see in
recording.
writing.
That's true, we should have. What was
We
I
should have.
thinking?
We were perhaps too compliant. We were too compliant. We weren't as
Well, never
rebellious.
again. Never
Right.
again. Next time, I'm
This is
calling
true.
out the librarian in charge.
This is true. So, and we then decided to pull our resources together and go and sit down, and we discussed a little bit about not only the physical barriers to getting into the library, this kind of labyrinth to get in, and numerous escalators, and going through security.
And the overwhelming monolithicness of it all, the huge,
Yeah, it's this sense.
on and on forever stuff.
What we wanted to discuss too, as our introduction already discussed, is this idea of how some libraries are very much still stuck physically in this kind of library 1.0
Yeah.
reality. And what they can do, or what some of the options might be to become library 2.0.
Like providing the materials for users to create content, like what we're doing right here, to provide
Right.
a video theater where you've got your video, a camcorder, a PC with all of the free open source software that you need to create a podcast or a vodcast. There are libraries that do that.
There
Charlotte
definitely are.
Mecklenburg.
That's right.
Yeah,
and I
Charlotte
think
Mecklenburg
is
does
one of
that.
the big ones, offering green screens and other tools for content creation. I think one of the things that some libraries are doing is they're providing those places, those spaces, but also providing tools to do this kind of content creation. And so I think what we were thinking about this idea that in Library 2.0 of getting back to this kind of service ethic, and librarians themselves getting out from behind the desk, coming out from the shelves.
And not necessarily bothering people who are deep
Right.
in study, but if someone, looks like they're a little lost, which
Right.
is probably common here in Washington.
Yes, yes.
Being there to offer your help and to help them find their way back out of the fiction stacks, or
Right.
wherever they're
Right.
lost in.
Right, or to
Yeah.
encourage some other services. So again, I think one of the things, it's a small thing, but I think libraries need to have more trust and
Good word.
Right.
Yes, trust.
in the fact that we can respect the library and its place and the materials that are there, and we're not gonna get spaghetti all over the new book, and we're not going to spill 2 liters of Coke all over the new set of encyclopedias. And you know what? Yeah, that is going to happen from time to time, but it's going to be rare and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, most people I think know how to eat around things like that. Well, and you know, some of the policies that they have held on to, like no eating, no drinking, no filming, no picture taking, just like they say in Jurassic Park,
With life
they will find a way.
finds
And
a
people
way.
do. I had goldfish crackers in my bag. And I ate them a little bit on my way out, so nobody knew.
Right, right.
I had water in my bag too, and I drank some while I was there. Yeah, I was on a flight a couple of weeks ago, and I read an article in American Way magazine about 2 basketball stars in Seattle. And Sue Bird, one of the basketball stars, had a quote in there about the Seattle Public Library saying how fantastic it was, how odd she was because it did not look like a library.
Yeah.
And that was just fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And then the things that you've read about, talking about how the academic librarians who had experiences with students who come into the libraries who feel like being in that space puts them in the right mindset.
You know, a couple things here with signage. I think, you know, Harold Washington could really take some time, and probably a lot of libraries like them, to really reevaluate their signage. It's maybe time to really sit down with the patrons, to do a simple survey, and to really ask your patrons, you know, it doesn't need to be perhaps as revolutionary as what Maricopa is doing,
Yeah.
but I think all libraries need to evaluate that signage and ask themselves and ask their patrons, are they able to find what they're looking for as efficiently as they would hope. I think previous libraries were very much about hand it over or put it out for bidding and allow all these different architectural firms to design your library. And obviously they have a lot of preconceived notions about what that should be, but architects are not librarians, and architects more often than not are not your patrons. And I'd like to think that a lot of libraries, or at least some of them, are moving towards this idea of, okay, obviously we need architects, we need engineers to do this designing, but let's also bring in our community, let's bring in patrons, let's bring in the librarians, and try to design as well around their needs. And the community's needs.
Yeah. And use other libraries as examples, you know.
Right.
Go to other libraries, figure out what works in that library or what doesn't work, and apply that to your own designs.
Yeah, for sure, because we know, certain libraries like Seattle. What is it that makes Seattle so exciting to so many
And
people?
and I have not been there, but I'm sure there are things that don't work.
Right.
And so there's something to be learned in every library. There's got to be things that work and don't work.